Hello, welcome back for another video. Be honest, when you read the title, you were probably not expecting to find me on my sofa with no cello in sight anywhere. But that is precisely what gets us straight to the crux of today's video, because the kind of practice that I'm going to talk to you about today is the kind of practice that can be done anytime and anywhere. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the power of mental practice. When employed consciously and regularly, mental practice can be an absolute game changer and really turbocharge our progress on the instrument. However, in my experience, very few students really even think about the power of mental practice, or indeed have ever learned how to do it, in which tasks specifically are best tackled away from the instrument rather than with the instrument in hand. So today I want to take you through a few different examples of the kind of work that I do every single day away from my cello. The first one, without a hint of a doubt, is rhythm. Any kind of rhythm work that I need to do. If I have to play a piece that's rhythmically complicated, that I know is going to take a little bit of figuring out, the first thing I do is put the cello down, make myself comfortable on the sofa with the music, with a metronome, and get started at figuring it out. What do? I switch on the metronome, very often much below actual speed, and I beat out the beat as a conductor would, whilst either with the other hand clapping out, tapping out, or singing the rhythm, really until that is absolutely in my system. Rhythm is something that we have to ultimately internalize and feel in our gut. And if we can't correctly execute a rhythm away from the instrument by tapping out the pulse and by either singing or with the other hand tapping out the rhythm correctly, there is no way we will ever play in time on the instrument. So I'm going to make a whole separate video about rhythm quite soon, because that's something we have to talk about. The first task that I will always do away from my cello is rhythm work. When you get a new piece, don't even pick up the cello until you have sorted out the rhythm in your head away from the instrument. A second really obvious one is bowing patterns. That's something, for instance, you can observe when you watch orchestras in rehearsal, where very often we're having to change bowings very quickly, really on the spot, and you will especially see the concertmaster and the other string principals very often just sort of miming the bowing, essentially, to just quickly work out in their head, what may or may not work before writing it down. And indeed, that is something, if you have to learn anything with a slightly complex bowing pattern, again, that is something to do away from your instrument, because very often I see students, especially once they're trying to get to grips with more complex patterns, which may have a mixture of slurred or separate notes, or for instance 2 or 3 uppos in a row, and whilst you're trying to navigate all sorts of other things, intonation, shifts, whatever, it's very difficult to also then think about your bowing patterns. So again, that's a task. You can learn that whole right hand choreography away from the cello. And top tip, try to combine that with the rhythm work while you are at it. So try to do all the bowing again with the metronome ticking, and you will already have put an awful lot of money in the bank there. Number 3, and perhaps the most important one of all in the grand scheme of things, and that's really the one that brings all the other elements together, and that is visualization. When I'm practicing, before I actually play something, before I actually put bow to string, what I try to do is essentially build a sort of 3D model in my head of exactly what I want to hear, what it's going to feel like. You plan out everything before. You think, okay, how much bow am I going to use? Which part of the bow am I going to be in? And you want to execute the task 2-3 times really cleanly in your head first. If you can't execute the task in your head, you can't execute it on your instrument. It's as simple as that. Because for better or for worse, whatever happens on our instrument is the result of whatever cognitive process has gone on beforehand or hasn't gone on beforehand. So I always say to my students, think twice, play once. And that way you can really cut out an awful lot of wastage in your practice. For professional musicians, mental practice is an absolute staple of our day-to-day work, particularly in the environment I work in London, where we really get through an awful lot of, very often completely different kinds of music during the course of a week. If you are working in an orchestra, you can have 2-3 full different concert programs in a week, and you simply don't have the time to spend endless hours playing through all of those with your instrument. So a lot of the work for us happens, for instance, while we're traveling. So a great many of us now have got big iPads where we have got all our music, all of our PDFs on there. And we invariably spend an awful lot of time sitting on trains, buses, planes, wherever we're going. And that's really where you can see people, just going through the music, mentally playing through it, just trying to memorize, even fingering patterns. You can work through the rhythm. You can really familiarize yourself with the structure of a piece. So for us, a great amount of work happens away from the instrument, and once you get into that habit, and the more experienced that you become, you will really find that the amount of time you actually need with your instrument becomes less and less and less, and it means that the time you do have with the instrument is much more high quality time, because you are not spending it anymore on basics like rhythm, like bowing. You can then really start to work at a much higher level. So try that out. That is my absolute top tip for you. As usual, of course, any comments, any questions you have, pop them into the comments below and we can have a chat. And I look forward to seeing you for more soon. And if you enjoy these videos and you haven't done so already, subscribe and don't forget to smash that like button as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon.